Hi, and welcome to FM Facebook Live. Great to have you with us. I'm glad you joined the show today. As always, we want to give you a real quick starter to remember that the two most valuable things you'll ever possess are your ideas and your time to carry them out. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get some great ideas today and get rocking and rolling. This is a global concept that is brand new for us, and we just love it. So we're going to dig right in. Before we do, I want to give you a little bit of information on your reputation and how to build one. This will tie right into what we're doing later. So your reputation is who you are to everyone else. Okay, so building a great reputation is super important because that's how they perceive you. Okay, so if this makes sense, how you build your reputation is by saying it and doing it, right? You say it and then you do it, and you say it and then you do it. And 3 of those in a row starts a pattern. People eventually will start to notice the pattern that what you say and what you do are the same. And my dad used to always tell me, he says, if your word, right, your word is who you are, that's right, and being able to make sure that your actions are attached to your words, right? And they're connected. And he says, so if you say it and you do it, people really get to understand who you are. Is you're somebody who says what they're going to do and then you do it. Now, for any reason you can't do it, and that happens every once in a while, then your next step is as soon as you know you can't get that done, what you said, then you go back, tell that person, guess what? I'm sorry I said that and didn't get it accomplished. And here's why it's not going to get accomplished on time. So you explain what's happening so they know beforehand, this is the type of person you are, is you're going to say it and do it. If it's not going to happen, you're going to let them know, and you give them some lead time if possible to make sure that, right? Then they start to trust you. So they don't just know you, they begin to trust you. It doesn't mean that they necessarily like you or not, because they may not like what you're saying sometimes, but at least they know what you say is what you do. Okay, and so if you continuously do that, right, you'll build a great reputation or start to build a great reputation. And the next step on that is whatever it is you're going to do. My dad would always say this: do it once and do it right. Right? And he always says he worked a while back. He was an estimator for a great construction company up in Maine. And these builders were fantastic. And one of the head of that corporation, he used to say, you always measure twice and cut once. You always make sure, number one, okay, this is a measurement. Let's go back and re-measure. And then you cut the board or whatever it is you're doing one time. That way you're sure or more sure that you're going to get it done. Years ago, I had a guy that came over and he was supposed to do our lawn system and our watering system. And when he did, he would always leave. So he'd come and I'd call him and say, hey, oh, we got something broken. Can you come fix it? He'd come fix it and he'd leave. But he never tested it. So he'd come, he'd fix it, and he'd leave. And then I'd go test it and it wouldn't work. Then I'd have to call him back and he'd have to come back and go, oh, I'm sorry. And then the next time he'd do the same thing and he wouldn't test it. He'd leave again. I'd go test it again and it was broken. He'd have to come back again. So his reputation to me was he'd come over. And so I ended up getting somebody new because of the fact that his reputation and his pattern was fix it, but don't test it and don't know that it's fixed. You need to know. You need to test it. You've got to take that responsibility on yourself if you want a great reputation. If you don't care about your reputation, the perception of others to you, then you don't have to do that. But then they'll get that. You'll get a different reputation of somebody who says it but doesn't do it. And so my dad used to tell me, he says, if your word is no good, then so are you to everybody else. So it's important that you maintain that integrity. And he says, even more importantly than your reputation to others is your internal reputation to yourself. What you think about yourself, what you say, and what your internal messages that you're giving yourself is, I say it and I do it. So when you get to a big swimming race or something like this, and you say, yeah, I'm going to get this, that you go and accomplish that, because that's your reputation to yourself. So your emotional power and energy rises up to the occasion to get you to what you wanted to perform, what you wanted to do, and it gets you to your goals. Right? These are the things that are so important, that people are powerful inside. It's not your height, it's not your your looks, it's your reputation, your internal reputation of yourself is so important. So I'm going to give you a few recommendations for this week. Again, during the week, you can watch these to kind of reinforce what it is that we're talking about, and even going further to learn new things during the week between now and the next time we meet. Okay, so go to the FM Discovery Center, right? And that's written right here, fluidmechanics.net, and then you click on FM Online Training, and then FM Discovery Center. And it looks kind of like this. And in that search bar right up here, right, you want to type in there, and you're going to type, the first one is, what's a leader without followers? That's a really great one. What's a leader without followers? And then the next one is the leader of the lane. A little different than you might think. And again, another great one. And really reinforcing and going farther and more in depth into your internal reputation, why your internal reputation is so important. Okay, so that's what we'd recommend. Do that if you can between now and next week. And let's head into our cornerstones, and we're going to orient ourselves, see where we are, right? So we have the right context to our information. So in this case, we're going right in here, and we're going into the brain, right? Our program is called the MindWorks Brain. It's fantastic. I think you'll love it. We presented to the Navy SEALs. They actually extended from 1 hour to 2 hours just to learn more about this brain program. It should also be coming out. They're going to have a full animated version on our new FM Fast Track, which is coming out at the end of June, and it's going to be fully animated. It'll be fantastic. You'll love it. You can get a membership to that, and then you can also buy these courses, if you like, on the brain. It makes a huge difference. It's for high performance swimmers and everyone else. Okay, and it's really helpful, that MindWorks Brain program. Okay. Today's presentation, we're going to be revealing, it's called emotional trading. We're going to be revealing the 4 characters that play a part in emotional trading, the actions that set them apart from each other, and how to get what you want and use that trading to get what you want from life. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start into that and start to understand it. But before we do, just a little bit more information and some really interesting information. Again, it ties right in. And I had an experience this week with this. Very interesting. You can see it so clearly. But number one, there's 4 basic types of people. And these are not the 4 characters we're going to be talking about in a moment. But there's 4, and they're related though. There's 4 basic types of people that we find. There's people that make things happen. People that watch things happen. People say, what happened? And people that stop things or try to stop things from happening and put the brakes on, right? So let's look at it a little bit more in depth. So the people that make things happen, what they're doing is we call in the brain, when you get new information, that thought of new information is called a control. You then have an action, and an action is, an action is what you do from those controls. Right? So you think it and then you do it. And then the last one is what we call a weapon. And a weapon to us, when it's weaponized, which means then you can use it, that's emotionalized. So you can use it in an emotionalized situation. Right? So people that make things happen gain the control, the new knowledge. Right? So they got that control in their head. Right? They gain the new knowledge, the control, and then they use it. Right? And so they're using it. That's people making things happen. Then they may gain another control and use that. What are people watching things happen? They gained the control, they got the thought, but they're not taking any action with it. They're not running the action, they're not, right, hitting the weapon, they're not, nothing. They just gained the control, they learned it. But they're not using it. Then you have people that say, what happened? What's that? People say, what happened? That's actually someone who never gained the control. And they just say, oh, I don't know what happened. And then you have people that stop or try to stop things from happening. That means they gain the control and they're working against what somebody's trying to do, if this makes sense, right? So it's very interesting to watch people and kind of get an idea of where they are in their general personality, and it's all situational, right? So in some situations they'll do this, in other situations they won't. But if you can see that type of thing, generally you want to kind of look at that and get a feeling for that. Okay, let's go into our main topic here, which is emotional trading. So in emotional trading, we have 4 basic characters. And looks like I got a little bit of a B back there. That's okay. I love them. All right. So first thing, right, is you're going to have what's called a taker. A taker is what we consider, that's A, and they're considered an opportunist. All right. So a taker is an opportunist. A giver, okay, can be an enabler. You know how they say it's better to give than take? We think it's actually better to give and take. So a taker is somebody who's an opportunist. They take whatever it is. A giver is an enabler. They just give. Nothing, they don't take anything, just give, right? And so what a taker is, right, is when you have, I can see that B back there. When the taker, what the taker is when they have let's say somebody offers them something and they say, yeah, thanks, I'll take that. But then they don't do anything really in return, right? It's all about them. We had a guy not too long ago that he was working with us, and we'd done some clinics up in Maine to promote our company and help people, give them exposure to what we do. And what he did was I sat down and I was on a board, a hiring board for them to hire a new swim coach. And I walked in there and I saw him and he says, oh, hey, John, it's great to see you. I said, oh, it's really nice to see you too. He says, you know, it's interesting. He says, I have to tell you, your programs helped my child so much. You know, he gave those free programs. I said, yeah. He says, so that's really fantastic. What, you know, that's amazing. He said, I think he did like 3 of them up here and he got so much better from your programs. I said, oh, I'm glad you liked them. And I said, but I noticed that you didn't take any more. He says, well, you should do some more of those programs, he said. And I said, well, I noticed you didn't take any more. And he said, yeah. And I said, if they helped your son so much, why didn't you take any more? Oh, he says, I'm not sure. I said, was it because you had to pay for them to get help for your son? At that point, he turned around and didn't talk to me anymore. He wanted, you know, us to travel all the way up there, do that for free, give him something, help his son, but he didn't want to pay for anything. He didn't want to give anything back at all, other than a thank you. That's what I call a taker. Giver is something very different. A giver is B here, and what a giver does is they give. So what we were doing was giving, right? But there was no return on that. So as we did that, the giver, when they're relating to the taker or the opportunist, right, the enabler giving that to the opportunist, eventually gets frustrated, right, because they're not getting anything back. There's nothing back for them. And so there's no balance to the relationship. So the other thing is, years ago I had a friend of mine, and he got me a birthday present, and we were actually working together, and it was really nice. And I said, wow, that's really nice. I didn't expect that. No problem. When his birthday came up, I went and I got him a present. I gave it to him. He says, I'm sorry, I don't take presents. So that if you don't take, you take the opportunity away from someone else that wants to give. You take that away. And it always feels good when you give. But you take that opportunity for them to get that satisfaction, that feeling away from that. So somebody told me a while back that you should both give and take. And that makes sense to me. Now, yesterday I had a conversation with someone who I would call a rejecter. That's C. So we were having a conversation and he just shut it down. He says, John, he says, I know everything that you've ever done. I said, really? Wow, I can't even remember all that. He says, yep, I know everything you've ever done. And he says, not only that, I know everything that you're ever going to do. I said, how would that be possible? And he says, I'm not interested in working with you. I know everything you've done in the past and everything you will do in the future. Just not interested. So what he did was he shut down the conversation and didn't want to interact. So he exited the relationship. So what I did with that other person, as you noticed, I exited the relationship because of the fact that I found out that he was a taker versus an acceptor. What's an acceptor? An acceptor normally gives and takes. They reciprocate. I get something and you get something. Because everybody really wants something, right, in return and back and forth in the acceptor category, right? So it's more of a good relationship and a strong relationship when you give and you're generous and you get something back, and right, and it works for everybody. But it's very interesting, these four characters. You have takers and givers. And a lot of times, givers and takers go together for a while. But then it doesn't last. If it does last, it's kind of a bad relationship. It's not working for everybody. And I remember years ago, I had one of my employees got married, and so I went to the wedding, and I didn't really enjoy the priest who was marrying them. I just wasn't connected with a lot of his ideas and what he said and his presentation method. However, he said something that I think I'll always remember my whole life, and I thought it was fantastic, and I'm so glad that I got that information. He said, marriage, it's like there's three beings. There's you know, the you, the her or him, right? The other, the partner, and then there's the us, and the us in the middle. It's almost like there's like a box in the middle, and someone gives, and the other person takes out of that box, and the other person gives, and the other person takes. And he says, if you both keep giving, when somebody needs something, there's always plenty to take out. But if one person's always giving and one person's always taking, when the person that's giving now needs something from that box, there's nothing left in it for them. You need to both give and take, right? And that's in a relationship with anything or anyone. These are really important. Now here's the reactions that we find a lot of times that people will make that go along with the characters. So for instance, the taker, a lot of times you'll see you give them something and there's nothing. No thanks, no nothing. Just got it. There's also sometimes a thank you. And so they go from 0 to 1. Oh, thank you so much. But there's not really a recognition of what you did or your effort or your intent. Nothing like that. It's just thank you. But they're not intending to do anything. There's no action that's going to follow it. It's just words. Right? The next step is the recognition of action, effort, and intent. Right? So you not only say thank you to your mom or your dad or your coach. Coach, thanks so much for a great workout. Can you imagine if you got out of the pool, you went to your coach, say, that was an awesome set. Holy cow. I mean, how do you think of that one, right? And I say, you know, it must be challenging to write these workouts every day and make them so great like this. Thank you. Really, I know you got the best in your mind for us. And recognize his action, what he did. So recognize the action is, thanks for writing the great workout. And the effort, wow, that takes time and effort, right? Wow. And how long did he spend on that? Asking him a question about that. And then, you know, recognizing his intent. Man, you really are trying to help this team. What would that do? What kind of energy would that transfer into your coach? What would the next day be like when you came back to the team? And the coach said, and he's feeling this energy, like, people really appreciate my workouts. These guys are really getting it. What do you think your coach is there for? right? It's the energy that goes back and forth, and they feel like they're doing something great for the kids and the families. That's what they're there for. You know, the paycheck is just a way of making a living for coaches. It's much more to them. It's a passion usually, right? And they really want to help. And so if you recognize that intent, it's going to make them feel appreciated. Now, what's the next step, right? Because at that point, you haven't done anything. You haven't given them anything other than this amazing praise. You can see how number 2 changes everything, right? Whereas 0 gives no energy to the relationship at all. 1 gives just a slight, yep, that was good. But number 2 really changes things. Number 3 is your appreciation and return. My daughter's been working on this. She's 7 years old. And last night she said, Daddy, thank you so much for working so hard, right? I know you're working in the middle of the night, every night, building these presentations and helping the other swimmers and things like that. And she says, you really care about these kids. Thank you so much for doing that. And for helping our family while you do it. She says, you are working so hard. She says, I'm going to do the dishes for you tonight. Right? Or I'm going to help set it up for you tomorrow. I'll be there to help you set it up. And then she carries it out and does it. Unbelievable. That's a almost 8-year-old, right? That's a very young person understanding how important that her reactions are. And as she does that, if she does number 3, she becomes a reciprocator. D. Right? So we call it, actually we do it the opposite way, we call it 3D. Right? 3-dimensional. Now ask yourself what a 1A is. Right? So 1A says thank you. But they don't do anything back. The rejector is normally going to do 0. No, not interested. You want to see these people. They say feel their, right, or hear their words and feel their souls. You can understand what they're about. You building relationships, what kind of person would you like to build a relationship with? Think about your future spouse. Right? Are you guys, would you work together? Which one would you want? Would you want an A? And if you did, there's got to be a little something that's worrisome there, right? Would you want a B? If you want a B, probably you could be an A right now. Maybe you want to change that or consider it. Right? If you want something that just gives, doesn't take, how's that going to work? How does it fulfill their needs as well? Remember, both parties, right? And if you look at that, you can see that this relationship in the center here, that's the relationship. And you have the 2 beings, one over here and one over here. And right, that's the relationship right there between them, that spiral, and how that works. Right? Now, if the spiral, if it's too close, right, then they're almost living each other's lives. But if they're separated like that and you got that relationship, that can be very, very bonding and helpful if you do it right. Again, you want to pick which one you want to be. A rejecter. And I've been a rejecter before in a relationship I just didn't want to have. So we're all of those. But the question is, where do we live? What are we most likely to do? What's our general personality? Are we a taker? Are we a giver? Are we a rejecter? Or are we an acceptor? And acceptors long-term have much better social interactions and they're much healthier long-term because they're not getting built up with, if they were a B, with regrets on the fact that, oh, I wasted all this time, nobody gave back. I'm doing all the work in the relationship and nobody else is doing it. So you want to have that with your coach? You want to have that with your teachers. And the question is, do you have the guts, right? The internal fortitude to go and try it. And we'll find out, right? Do you have the guts to go up? And this is what I was so proud of my daughter for doing, is she said, right, came up and she actually pulled the trigger and did it. And she's now done it. We give her a check mark at night. Because the less value something has in the reward, the more the reward itself, right? The less value the reward has, the more the reward itself is intrinsic. It's inside that person. It's more, what does the check mark really mean? Except for the fact that you earned it. And that internal reputation, who you feel like you are, who you think like you are, who you act, right? And who you become is all based on that internal. So if I say, oh, if you do this, I'm going to give you $10. That's going to be external. And that's totally defeating the purpose of an internal reputation. That's why I want to watch that internal reputation. So there's a lot more conversation about this that can go on, but I wanted to give you a little window into what this subject and how important it is to all your relationships, your teachers, right, if you have bosses, your employees, your coworkers, your friends, your family, most importantly, your family, right? So you want to give and take and become an acceptor, right? And that's making sure that you know that when you're in an interaction, you want to make sure you reciprocate. So how do you get what you want? And it's just really simple, right? How do you use this to get what you want? Is by becoming the acceptor, right? You'll connect better, build stronger relationships, and people will be happy to return the favor to you to help you get what you want in life. Years ago, I had a guy come up to me, and it was kind of sad in a way, right? And I was coaching. This is way back, and I was coaching in California, and I started to have my first meeting before I ever got the swimmers in the pool, things like that. And parents came. We all got to meet each other. And this one parent, he was pushing his way through. Excuse me, and he pushes his way up to the front of the group. He says, John, I'm sorry, I don't have much time, but I got to get going. He says, but I want to tell you something. My son is really smart. Okay. And he says, no, you don't get it. He's like super smart. Okay, he's saying this right in front of everybody, all the other parents, right, with the kids on the team. He says, let me just make sure you understand. He's so smart that he can't get along with anybody. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering where he got that from. Can't get along with anybody. Here you are in the middle of telling her, but I said, okay. I said, so he's so smart he can't get along with anybody. Got it. I said, you know what? I think if he was that smart, he'd figure it out. So he didn't enjoy my particular approach on that, I'm sure. But what there is, and we talked about this a little while ago, is that there's 32 different styles of geniuses that they've identified so far. What he was saying that he didn't know, and I don't think I had the words for it at the time, was that his son has an academic genius, but his social genius is not as strong. So he doesn't have as much social genius. Right, so his social interaction, but I think he's probably learned that from dad by cutting the line and blurting it out in front of everyone. Right, that's kind of how they do things there. And we spent a lot of time that year working on his ability to socially interact. And I was so surprised that he gained so many friends that year, and it was so fulfilling to me. He said, I got another friend. I'm doing good. Fantastic. I says the way you treat people. And the way, right, is reflective of how they treat you back. And it changes things. So if you treat them poorly, a lot of times they'll treat you poorly back. That's called a return. It's a different type. It's an emotional return. Okay, so at this point, you should know the 4 characters. If you don't, really quit. Here they are. You got the taker, the giver, the rejecter, and the acceptor. Notice I spent a little more time on acceptor. That's who you want to be, right? And then over here, and again, you're going to use all of them, but depending on, right, you don't want to accept relationships you don't want. Sometimes you're going to be a rejecter, but generally that's what you like to be. They're actions and reactions, right? And remember what those are, real quick. You can do nothing, 0. If you want to reject, that's a great way to do it. You can just say thank you and do nothing more. But in the relationships, the long-term relationships you want to build, have recognition. Number 2, recognition of action, effort, and intent. Right? Action, what they did for you, recognize that. Effort. So this is recognition. People like recognition. The effort they put behind that to make that happen for you. And their intent, what they meant to do. I really know you meant well by this. I know it didn't happen, but I could see you trying. Intent is such a big deal, because when we try and don't always succeed at trying, having the knowledge of that intent is so important. And number 3, appreciation and return. And that changes everything. It turns it around. Because now they know that you've got to say it and do it, and you're willing to give, not just take. And now you've got a long-term potential partner, and then you open that door. And now you know, right, how to make better trades. Whoops, I think I put an extra S in that. How to make better trades. Right? So if this makes sense, follow those down the road. Do you have the mental fortitude to carry this out? And I'm going to challenge you right now. Anybody watching this, if you're an adult, a child, no matter who you are, see if you can get this challenge. Do at least 2 recognitions in the next week and start your pathway. At least 2 recognitions. Now, 2 recognitions, what recognitions are, again, it's on level 2, right? Not 0, 1, it's 2. If you can get to 2 of those, right, for 2 different people or 2 different reasons, even with the same person, right, you're starting that process. See if you can go down the road and see what their reaction is to you. I'd be amazed if you don't start getting, right, a little bit more help. And I think when I'm done this program, I'm going to reject that B. Okay. Next week, got a great program. You see they're eating this apple here. We used to run this program years ago in our camps, and we have phenomenal camps. And we ran this program in our camps, and the football camp, the whole football camp would just come in and just watch us do this program. It's really simple, but it's really helpful. And it's helpful not just for athletes, but it really has a lot to do with athletic nutrition and fueling. So basically, it's called Nutrition for High Performance Athletes. But it also helps you if you're trying to get on a diet. It'll clear it up. So it's going to reveal the triad of nutrition, show you basically how to eat like an athlete, and identify what type of fuel you're going to put in your body. Thanks for joining us. If you like the program, let us know. Share it with your friends, and we'll see you next week on FM Facebook Live.